Welcome back to Dreams and Dollars. Today we have a special guest, Jessenia Caquias. She is from Jessenia Caquias Law Firm, and she's here with us all the way from Passaic, right?
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
It's such a pleasure to hear, her story. We're going to learn more about Jessenia, how she got here, what brought her to being a lawyer, which is very inspirational. She has her own practice as well. You did start out at a firm, right?
I started out at the prosecutor's office.
Oh, so can you share a little bit how your process started for you to get to where you are today with your own law firm?
So it actually does go back all the way to high school.
Okay.
As cheesy as that sounds, right?
I
But
know.
I knew since I was a teenager, I was involved in Yonkers Youth Court. So I was born and raised in Yonkers, New York.
Okay.
And I was involved with what was called Yonkers Youth Court. And if I remember correctly, the way it worked is that us as high school students were able to represent juveniles who had misdemeanors, right? And the idea behind it was that we would work out community service or other ways that they could fulfill their sentence without having to do
And
actual.
did you received credits for that at school?
So no, actually, it was a volunteer experience. It was more for having the experience.
Okay.
And once I started doing that, I'm like, this is really cool. I
That's
like
awesome.
this.
I never heard of anything like that. I think that's
Yes, it
amazing.
was great for both of us, right? Because the high school students got the experience, but then those who maybe, I don't know, were carrying a knife in their backpack, right? Or trespass somewhere, or, things that weren't, I don't want to say they're not too serious, right? But they were misdemeanors. They had the opportunity to perform community service and not have that go on their record.
Okay.
Right? And so once I tried that, I decided, oh, this is so cool. I joined the mock trial team in high school. So we were doing competitions and pretending to be attorneys and handling all these cases. And I'm like,
That's
this
amazing.
is so cool,
Yeah.
right?
Because you're kind of role playing, right? But you were actually getting some practice at this at the same time. So
Yes.
that's super cool. Oh my God,
Yes.
you tell me that and I get
Yeah.
excited. Because you're actually playing a role in the court system.
Yeah.
You're helping out juveniles. Wow, that's impressive. I love it.
It was really exciting. We used to do it every week and, just tried it out. And so I decided I want to be an attorney. I want to do this in real life. And then after that, everything was just tunnel vision, right? I had decided, okay, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to
you
do
know
the
how old you
pre-law
were?
program. I must have been 15, 16
Okay.
years old at the time. And
So this
I knew-
program influenced you.
it did.
That's
It did.
amazing.
It did. And you know what's funny? That I was also in the Academy of Finance in high school.
Okay.
So I always wanted to find the business aspect to it.
So you had both.
Yes.
Ah.
Yes. So I
Those are
remember.
amazing programs.
Yeah, they were. I am proud of my high school. I'm proud of it.
I would be
because
too,
it-
because everything just tied together. So now you're here owning your own law firm alongside being the lawyer. Everything you dreamed of.
Exactly. And I don't know if I really believed it back then. I want to think that I did.
Yeah.
Right? But I just remember thinking, yeah, I want to be a lawyer, but there's a business aspect to that, right?
There
I
is.
remember thinking, you can own a business. I'm going to own a business one day. And I used to say that back then and,
You were speaking it into existence.
Yes,
You didn't know how you were going to get
yes.
there, but you were getting there.
And at the time, I didn't know the power of manifestation,
No.
right? I didn't know that you can speak things into existence.
absolutely can.
And I did.
You can.
And
I
it
have the goosebumps
happened.
as you say that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It was great. And then, so I went to, college, and I knew I was going to go to law school and everything. What landed me in doing immigration, though, was the connections that I made.
Your practice is focused on immigration law.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And I didn't know that I wanted to do immigration law. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer. I knew I wanted to eventually have my office. I didn't know when, I didn't know how, right? But I knew it was going to happen
You knew it was
some
gonna
way.
happen.
Exactly. And one day, thanks to the connections that I made growing up, my aunt called me with this opportunity. I had just graduated college. It was May of 2014.
And you had just finished your bachelor's?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you
Yes,
study for your
and
bachelor's?
I did political science and sociology. It was a double major because I knew that those were the majors that landed,
Yeah.
were good for law school and everything.
So you were already finding your way there.
Yes, yes. So that was the plan, right? So I was just trying to make it happen, but I knew I wanted to get some work experience before I went to law school.
Okay.
I wanted to make myself more marketable, right? Have some experience. So my aunt called me and says, listen, someone is offering me this job. I think is perfect for you. It's a legal assistant job in New York
Okay.
City. And you just graduated from college and you
You're
hear
like,
this, you're
I need
like,
it.
a legal assistant position, right?
And you were
So,
working in New York City at the time.
yes, yes. So I went into the interview and like I got the job
Of
and I got
course.
so much experience. I went in there with zero experience, right? I learned everything with that attorney and I grew with her and I'm like, wow, I really like this. And when you start helping people out, that's the thing. That's the kicker. Because you can do all sorts of different
You
kinds of
can.
law. There's business law, there's corporate law, but when you help someone who wants to come to this country in search of the American dream and you help them get those papers,
That's priceless.
it's a feeling like no other.
It's
So,
priceless because you are giving them a chance at fulfilling, and you're part of that. You're
yeah.
part of fulfilling the American dream. And when you help somebody achieve such a goal, it's like, wow, like I was a part of making sure they did what they needed to do to get there.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I feel like
Imagine.
everybody wants to find a way to help somebody.
Imagine being a guide for someone like that, right?
Exactly.
That comes
And
sometimes
having
from
the
terrible
knowledge.
circumstances. Exactly, where you can guide them. And so once I had that experience, I was like, I want to be an immigration attorney. So when I went into law school, I looked to see, I want to take immigration courses, right?
What courses
I
are going to
did
tie into immigration? Yes,
exactly,
makes sense.
exactly. And then when it was my turn to do an internship over the summer, I did it at a nonprofit
Okay.
that represents people in immigration proceedings, people who are in detention centers. I used to go to the Elizabeth Detention Center weekly and intake people who are in there and can't afford representation, right? So I kind of geared my education around that. And then somehow along the way,
That's like you found your niche, like you knew exactly what you wanted to focus on. And I
exactly.
feel like a lot of people go into law school not knowing what they want to focus on. They know they want to become lawyers, but they're not sure what part of law, because
Yeah.
law is full of all different kind of things. So finding that, saying that I want to focus on immigration law and that's what I want to do is impressive.
Yeah, it was. And I was very focused on doing that, right? But then somehow along like my law school journey, I also fell in love with criminal law.
Criminal law.
Yes. It's so much fun for me. I think it's so interesting, right?
You want to know a little snippet about me?
Tell me.
I went to school for criminology and I
Oh.
graduated with my bachelor's in criminology. And learning about criminal law didn't interest me because I
Oh.
didn't want to know about the bad guy.
It was the opposite.
I was the opposite. And so I took a course in victimology. That's when I was like, oh, I can help the person on the other side. So that's interesting that you said that, you liked criminal law. It's just so intense. It's so much information. It's like you're defending the bad guy. And that, for me, I was like, I don't want to defend a bad guy. I want to help the person that needs the help.
But they're not always bad guys.
I know.
That's the
true.
thing, right? Innocent until proven guilty, right? So
Yes, that is true. Innocent
They're
until
not-
proven guilty, yes.
right? So, and sometimes people are wrongfully, right, accused of things,
That
right?
is
So
true.
imagine being the
And it
helping
happens a
hand.
lot.
Yeah, yeah. But I also didn't want to do criminal defense, which is how I ended up at the prosecutor's office, which I did have some problems with in the beginning because I thought, oh, I don't want to go against my people, right? Like, how am I going to sit here and put people in jail? Like, I was having some like inner
dilemma.
turmoil, yes, with that decision. But then I remembered that like our people are victims too, right? Victims need a voice too. When things are happening, something happens to your family member, everybody's knocking at the courthouse doors like, I want justice, right? At that point, you want a prosecutor, right, to do their
do.
job. And so I focused on that. I focused
Okay.
on helping. I focused
twist.
on security. And so I did that for a year or two. And then I got pregnant with my son. Yes. And once I was on maternity leave,
The freedom you had. That's where your entrepreneur spirit
that
came
is
out.
where it came back, right? Because remember, I mentioned it in high school that I wanted to do that.
You want
And then
your own
somehow,
business.
your paths twist. It's not a linear path.
It's not.
Right?
And sometimes you can have your goals written down and have, your plans of how you're going to get there, but it doesn't always happen that way.
Exactly.
You were inspired while you were home, which is beautiful because you were able to take a step back and say, wait a minute, do I want to go back to work?
Exactly.
And that's
exactly. As the time was getting closer to me going back to the prosecutor's office, and look, I loved working there. I loved being a prosecutor, right? But when you're balancing motherhood, right, with your career, where I was a prosecutor, my commute was like maybe an hour, a little bit more each day. So that was time I was losing.
With your child and
right?
your family.
I would get home late. Sometimes I was on call where for a week at a time I had to answer phone calls, right, in case there was a domestic violence situation. And I'm like, how am I going to handle the balance, right? Like, how am I going to be a great mother but also be a great attorney? And that's when I said, I'm going to have to take back time. I need to take control of my time. I need to do something else. And my aunt, again,
Your
came into
aunt
the
is
picture,
key
the
here.
same aunt. Yes, she told me, you wanted to open up a law office. That was your dream.
And it's
This is
funny
your
because
time.
sometimes it'll be just somebody to remind you of what you want. Because you've spoken about it already. But
Exactly.
you're
And
so
exactly.
fixated on life and, making sure that you're doing your needs as a wife, as a mother, that you get so intertwined with that it's like you kind of forget your goals and your vision. So that's really good that your aunt was able to say, wait a minute,
Yeah, she
you
reminded
wanted to
me.
open
She
your own
reminded me.
business.
She's like, your law office. You had a dream. You wanted to open up a law office. This is your time. And I got scared.
What made you scared about that? Knowing that, this is something you envisioned. You always said, even when you were in high school, I want to have a business. I want to have a law firm. Or even if you didn't say it, you knew the vision was there to have a business. What scared you the most?
I think taking that leap of faith, I think trusting myself that I could do this, right? And so I found myself making excuses. In the same conversation with
Yeah.
my aunt, I was like, oh, but I'm gonna need an office. She's like, so we find one.
Yeah.
I'm like, but then I'm gonna need money. We need capital. And my husband's like,
I got you.
I got you. Right? Like for every excuse I would come up with, they came up with
With a
solutions.
solution. So that's the thing. Every problem has a solution, right? Yeah. And not only that, every problem has a solution. You have to be able to say, I can do the performance. I can do the do. I can do what it takes to run a business because you have it within you.
Exactly. But you need the reminder
Yes.
sometimes.
Well, that's
right?
why you have your support system.
Support system. That is
Yes.
what's so important. They're the ones that kind of keep me, not kind of, they do.
They-
They keep me, right? Like in check. They remind me of what my goals are when I forget. They remind me of where it is that I'm trying to get when, because there's times where we have doubt, right? There's
Of
times where we don't
course.
feel our best, right? But my support system, they
It's
know,
right there.
you know who you are.
Aw.
My support system
Is everything.
is everything.
Oh, look at you. I love it. She gets teary. That's so
Yeah,
beautiful.
I love them.
You can't put a number behind a support system. That is something that for us entrepreneurs, we need that. We need that push, that constant reminder that you can do it. You have everything within you to do it. And that's why I have this podcast to inspire others, to show them, like you can start from nothing and create it. As long as you're willing to do the work, you can do it.
And that's it. You have to be willing to put in the
Because
work.
entrepreneurship is all, what do you call it? It's all, entrepreneurship is all based off your performance.
Exactly.
So if you're not willing to
Exactly.
put in the performance, then you're not going to get anywhere.
Exactly. And you feel that in the beginning,
You do.
right? And you have your businesses, right? Like you have two business women here.
Yes.
In the beginning, it's so hard.
It is.
Right? When you have to really remember why you started. You have to remember what your
That's
goals
why your
are.
why is important.
Exactly. Because in the beginning, you're just starting out, right? You're building clientele and it's rough.
It is. So since you said it was hard, what are some of your struggles as a new business owner? Like, what do you find to be the most difficult as a new attorney as well, running your business? Like, what are some things that you find that you say, wait a minute, this is frustrating for me. I have a hard time tackling this. And then the other question that I want to ask, because I know it's kind of similar, what's one thing that you would change in the attorney space if you could? So it's a
twofold question. Yeah. So I would say in terms of struggles, there are plenty. And you
Yes.
know this, right? Whether you're a lawyer, you're whatever, an entrepreneur, there are struggles, right? I would say that wearing multiple hats is a big one. Because right now, right, we're growing this business.
Yes.
It's still
You're
a
nurturing
baby.
it.
We're nurturing it, we're growing it. And at this point in time, I handle every aspect of it, right? There are times where I just want to be in lawyer mode. I want to represent my clients. I want to make arguments. I want to finish their cases, right? But then the phone is ringing. I answer my phones, right? I call them back. When you start a case with my office, I'm the one that handles it from inception all the way to the end. Like,
Oh,
you know that
wow.
when you're hiring me, I'm doing all the administrative work. I am filling out all your forms. I'm filling out your applications. I'm doing everything from A
It's
to
a
Z.
Z.
Yes. And then you have, right, your marketing. Who's handling my social media? Who's handling these? Me, right? So all the administrative things, all the entrepreneurial things, the bookkeeping. I tried to be my own bookkeeper. I do not have an accounting degree. And I tried doing that. And when I messed up those numbers, right, I had to hire
You had to
professional help
hire.
to clean it up, right? So I would say that handling all of those different things, right, like being the one to wear all of those hats is challenging,
It is.
right?
It is.
Sometimes I'm in the middle of a consultation and my phone is ringing and I'm like, well, it's gonna have to wait.
Mm-hmm.
And I do get back to everyone. I have a policy where I'll get back to them in 24 hours,
Okay.
but that balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also the additional balancing of being a great mom at the same time. That is a challenge sometimes, right? Because sometimes you want to dedicate more hours to your job. You want to go out there and meet more people. You want to do all these things, but babies need you too, right? Your husband needs you too, right? Like there are other responsibilities. So wearing those all those hats, I
And
would say is a
finding the
struggle.
balance.
Yes, yes. And so I was coming up with excuses, right? And I was like, well, I'm going to need an office,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so my aunt is like, so we'll find one. We will look, you will rent a space. And so for every excuse that I came up with, they had a
Had a
solution,
solution.
right? And they were right. Because I have to tell you, once I decided, okay, I'm doing this, and I decided to submit my resignation right to the prosecutor's office, and I was gonna go full force on this, I started announcing it to people. If you ever have a goal, start talking to some people about it. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
know your audience, right?
Yes.
Know your audience, but start talking about it because it becomes more real. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
setting expectations, right? The ball is rolling. I'm telling people, I want to open up a law office, right? When I
Yes.
even submitted my resignation, I was like, I love this, but I want to do
It
my
was
own thing
bittersweet.
now, right? And so I started letting people know. And once I started doing that, things just started unraveling on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Like the universe started conspiring on my behalf
It sure does.
because when I started looking for a property, a family friend was like, oh, I know so and so that has a building only for attorneys, a
Oh,
lawyer's building. It's just law offices, and there's an empty space
look at
that's just
that.
sitting there waiting for me,
It was waiting
right?
for you.
It was waiting for me. It was waiting for my office, and I met him. We hit it off, and boom, the office was taken care of. Then I'm
Wow.
thinking, well, now I need furniture, right? Everybody was closing their offices at this time. So I opened up the law office in November of 2022.
Okay.
So a lot of offices were going remote. So there was tons of furniture, right, to pick from. And everything just kind of, I want to say it almost landed on my
In
lap.
your lap.
And it took off that way. Everything that I needed was just kind of coming to me. And here we are. I have this law office in Passaic, New Jersey. It's beautifully furnished. It's ready, right? It's good to go. And it's a dream.
How does that make you feel?
Proud,
You should.
proud. I feel proud and I feel grateful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always be grateful. And I can feel that. I can feel your sense of accomplishment. Like I did that. And it's like a wow, like an aha moment. Like, wow, I made that happen. Just by believing in yourself.
Yeah. And taking that leap of faith,
Yes.
right? Because I was originally scared to do
Of
that. But
course.
boy, am I glad that I did it, right?
Yes. So, can you share like one of your cases that you can say that, wow, like that case has really impacted me? Because I know you shared about wanting to help, and that to you was why you got into becoming an attorney, especially for immigration. So, is there any cases that stick out to you that you're like, wow, that one really hits home?
Yes, yes. You started asking the question, and I already have her face in my mind. So it actually happened before I became an attorney. While I
Okay.
was a legal assistant in New York City, um, part of my job was to do translations, right, for consultations, for different things. And so I got very heavily involved in this one particular case of this young girl from Ecuador.
Okay.
Right? She came from an indigenous part of Ecuador. And so she didn't have a mastery of Spanish or English, right? She spoke a completely different language, Quechua. It's a different language.
Okay.
And so communicating with her was difficult at first, right? Like we relied a lot on like body language and communicating things. And I was really using Spanish because it's the closest thing that she could use to communicate
Wow.
with me. And this girl suffered so much in her home country, abuse, right? It was very emotionally tolling. And her case wasn't easy, but we were able to get her green card,
Oh,
right?
wow.
It took some time, right? And it took work. But when I was able to help fill out her paperwork, I was able to get her statement down on paper, I was able to communicate with her, and that all helped in getting her to that day where we were able to hand her her
Her green
green
card.
card. This girl from Ecuador, from this indigenous part of
She
Ecuador,
didn't speak
right?
Spanish or English.
And we made it happen,
Yes.
right? Like we made a very big and real change for her and her entire life and her family, right?
Wow.
And when we were able to do that, I was like, I need to do this for more people.
You do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's a feeling that you can't even explain it.
You have to
You
experience
have to
it.
experience. It's an experience.
You
Yes.
have to experience it to understand, that they come from these, not all the time, but sometimes they come from these terrible situations, and you're the first person that offers a helping hand when they come to this country.
So I want to ask you, what services can you offer your future clients or the audience that may be looking for an immigration attorney? Because sometimes you think immigration attorney, you think, oh, they can only help me if I'm an immigrant. So can you explain your services and what you can do for the community here in New Jersey?
Yes,
Because you only practice in
yes.
New Jersey, correct?
Well, no, actually. So
Oh,
my
okay.
my office is in Passaic, New Jersey. I am admitted in the state of New Jersey. However, because immigration is federal law, you can actually have clients in all 50
Oh,
states.
wow.
Yes, because it's the same law, right? It's federal
Okay.
law, and so I'm not limited. Like I have clients that come from New York, right?
That's
And I can
amazing.
represent them. But in terms of what I offer, so just to give you like an understanding, right?
Okay.
Because I think that when people think of immigration, you think of the border, right? You think of people coming, crossing the border. You think
Illegals.
that's what people want to say, right?
Yeah.
That's all you think of. But immigration is so vast, right? For example, let's say you're a sports athlete, right? And you're from another country, but a team here wants to recruit you. Who do you think is obtaining their sports visa so that they can come to the United States?
An attorney?
An immigration attorney,
Oh, okay.
right? Or, there are just so many avenues to coming to this country. So immigration has a lot of subsections, right? So you have those that focus on corporate, those that focus on business, those that focus on athletes. Some focus on getting visas for NASCAR drivers, right? There's different aspects. My focus, however, is family immigration, humanitarian
Okay.
immigration. So what that means is that my office can help you bring a loved one to the United States. My office can help you obtain a green card through a family petition. It can help you bring your fiance to the United States so that you can get married here. I also focus on the humanitarian aspect, as I mentioned before. So I will help you with your affirmative asylum application if that's what you're seeking. There are options for people who have been victims of crimes. So if you have been a victim of a crime in the United States, certain qualifying crimes, not all crimes,
Okay.
right? There's a way for you to obtain a U visa, which can
Mm.
later lead to a green card, right? And not everybody knows about this, right? So my office offers services like that as well, or people who unfortunately have been abused by their US citizen spouses, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are people who will be in love with someone, this US citizen, they think, and they're being abused and they think they have no options. They feel stuck, right? There are options. You come to people like us, right? And
And you will
so,
help them.
and we will help them. So when you think of me, you're thinking, family,
Okay.
humanitarian, right? And eventually I will do other
As you continue
things,
to
but
grow.
I'm a believer that you should really hone in on one subject and become really good at
Master
it,
it.
master
I
it,
agree.
and have that niche, and then little by little build on that and learn more. I feel like if you try
Branch
to,
off.
exactly,
Yes.
if you try to tackle too much at once, it becomes overwhelming. Immigration is complicated enough as it is for you to try to learn everything, right? So that's basically, I mean, we offer other things, right? But that's what we do in a nutshell.
So, as we know, so many things are constantly happening, especially since we're so close to New York. We're here in New Jersey, especially with the new crisis with immigration. I myself don't really know much of what's happening. I'm a little confused as to what is happening. What is your opinion and what is your take on what is happening in New York?
It starts with the border, right? So I think that that's what we're focusing a lot on is we need some reform, right, at the
Okay.
border. Unfortunately, there isn't enough infrastructure there right now to properly handle the amount of people that are coming into the country. And we need reform, right? That is the short end of it. We need reform at the border. And do I know what that looks like?
I was just going to ask, what does that look like?
Do I know what that looks like? Not even the experts know what that looks like, right?
Okay.
There was a bill presented, right,
Okay.
in the Senate to address those issues, and unfortunately, they weren't able to come to a consensus on how to deal with it. There were some good parts of the bill, some not so great parts of the bill, but it didn't go forward just yet. And so that just goes to my point that not even the experts, right, not even the politicians and the
They're still
people
trying to figure it out.
involved, they're trying to figure it out because it's a difficult
It
situation,
is.
right? It's very complex because on the one hand, you have people with the opinion that like close down the border, right? Like we don't want any more people coming in or come in the legal way, right? And we can't do that either, right? Because there are people who are coming from countries with real fear of persecution. And the only way for them to get some kind of remedy is to come here and seek asylum, right?
So when you say asylum, what options do they have if that's the case, that they're coming here because they don't want to return home because they are in fear of their life?
So if there are people who come to this country and they're afraid of going back because they fear that they're going to be persecuted based on something that's happened in the past or some kind of change going on in their country where they will be persecuted in the future, if that fear is based on their race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group, they can come to the United States to the border at a port of entry and seek asylum, right?
Okay.
Seek protection. And I don't think that it would be fair to just close that off, right? To those people who have those very real fears and want to come here and literally save their lives, right? And to close down the border for them because of a couple of people who take advantage of the
Of the
system
system.
or don't do it the right way. I don't think that's the right way to go about it. And I also don't think that people should be in detention centers because they come here asking for help, right?
So what exactly is a detention center?
Unfortunately, it's basically like jail,
Okay.
right? That's the reality of it. They're behind bars, right? Their freedom is restrained,
Wow.
and the families sometimes are sitting in these detention centers, waiting to talk to a judge to present their claim, and waiting to be let into the country so that then they could pursue their asylum claim or whatever claim it is, right? That they are pursuing or whatever legal relief it is that they're pursuing.
So now that made me think about like a case that I know about. For example, let's say somebody's here and they're in this country, but they're not detained. They came legally, but now they want to become an American citizen, but now their green card is expired. Are you able to help them with that? Like, do they even have a chance at like becoming an American citizen because now they stood over their wait times?
So sometimes there are situations where the person has no green card, right?
Okay.
And so we can help them in obtaining it depending on their situation. Maybe they have a family member that can petition for them.
Okay.
Like I mentioned before, sometimes they're victims of crimes. We can go that route, right? So depending on their individual
There's certain.
circumstances, we can figure out a way to try to get them a green card.
Got it.
Sometimes we can't get them a green card, right? Because as much as people like to say, do it the legal way, there are only a certain amount of paths to get that green
Yes.
card, right? And so if a person is not eligible or if they don't have family or if they don't have someone that can petition for them, then they don't have that
They don't have
option,
that
right?
option.
But then there might be another option. Sometimes you can get someone maybe temporary protected status, right? Which is protection from being deported if you belong to this list of countries that has been designated by the Secretary of State. Based on maybe natural disasters or something that's going on in the country. Once the country makes it onto that list, people from that country are protected from being deported there,
Okay.
right? So that can be another option, right? So what I'm trying to explain here is that you need to
There's
come and talk to an
yes,
attorney. There are
absolutely.
too many avenues to getting status, whatever that status looks like. Sometimes it's a green card. Sometimes it's being an asylee, right? Sometimes it's being a parolee. There's just so many.
It's like you said, each case has its own individual pieces that you need to put together so you can help them find solutions.
Yes. And it's gonna vary, right, depending on their circumstances. And sometimes, unfortunately, there are no options at all, right? And it's good to know that too, though, because how great is it to be able to talk to an attorney and learn, look, honestly, there are no options for you at this moment, right? Then you're not going to waste more time. You're not going to waste more money, right? There's no option. So I think that that helps as well, which is why it's really important to talk to a professional who can really assess your
Guide you.
situation and guide you and let you know what the truth is, what options you have.
What is your favorite part of actually being an attorney? Like, what is it that when you get up in the morning, you're like, all right, I'm ready to start my day?
So this one has kind of two answers, right? Because
Okay.
one is being an attorney and others being an entrepreneur and attorney, right?
Yes.
So the flexibility is definitely one of the great ones, right? Being able to manage my time and everything is an excellent one. But in terms of being an attorney, it's finding answers to the difficult questions, right? When you have a situation and it's complex for you and you don't know how to handle it and you feel like you have no options, it's an attorney who will analyze that for you. And it's fun sometimes, to have that
It's like problem
challenge.
solving.
Yes. And, it could be stressful. We're not going to
Yes.
sit here and pretend that it doesn't get stressful, but being able to look at a situation and analyze it almost like a puzzle to see what it is that you need to do for them to offer a legal option for them, it's fun.
It is.
Yeah.
I can picture, like, when you say it's like a puzzle, I can picture that, like, looking at every aspect and saying, okay,
Yes.
let's try it like this or let's try it like that. Let's see what's the outcome. So that's
Yes.
awesome. So, is there a mantra that you live by that has gotten you this far in life?
Yes. Dream, believe, and achieve. It starts with having a dream. As you start there, but then you can't just have the dream and let it sit there, right? You have to believe that you can accomplish it, and then you have to work toward it, and then you eventually achieve it, right? I started off with this dream in high school. And it took some years to get here. It took some tangents. It took, twisting of the path. But I had a dream of becoming an attorney and having my own business one day. I believed in it. I worked toward it, and here I am
You
today.
achieved it, girl.
Yes.
Yes, you had a dream. So, are you living your dream currently?
That's difficult to answer sometimes because I feel like that goalpost is always moving.
It's always moving,
It's
constantly,
always
as you grow.
moving. If you would have asked my younger self, are you living your dream? Absolutely. I am happily married. I have two beautiful children. I am healthy. I am happy. I have a thriving business, right? I think I'm living the dream, right?
You are.
But then you achieve those things and then you want to achieve something else and you
Yes.
keep moving that goalpost. And I think it's really important to bring it back and remember where you started and what you wanted to achieve, to realize that enjoy this moment now.
And appreciate.
Enjoy the present now, because how many times did you pray for what you have today, right? So I would say yes, I am living the dream, even though I continue to have other goals and aspirations.
But that's the good part of being able to set new goals. Because it doesn't stop right there. It doesn't stop at opening your business. You have to keep on growing. And I'm looking forward to see you grow as a business owner. I think it's going to be amazing to see you have a big practice. I don't know if that's part of your goals, but if it is, I think that'll be amazing, to have everybody under you and have that law firm that it's just ran by you, and that'll be
Yes,
amazing.
and I do want to have that, right? Because the more people I have working with me, the more people I can help.
Yes.
So absolutely, that is a goal that I have for the business, is to grow it, have other people working.
And it's aligned with your why to help.
Yes.
You said it.
Yes.
To help more people. That's so beautiful, guys. You're inspiring. I love it. What is some things that you may have challenges with when it comes to being an attorney, or some things that you may not like?
So I would say that right now, us attorneys, and I will speak specifically to immigration attorneys, right? Because that's the field that I'm in. We are having an issue right now with notarios, right? Notaries, but they're the infamous notarios, right? Which, look, their job is important. I respect their job. We do need them, right? But what's happening right now is that in other countries, notarios are also attorneys sometimes, right? So people will come from their country thinking that the notaries here are also attorneys. So you have people going to notaries for help with their immigration case, and that's dangerous. That is dangerous because, sure, they can charge less. You want to save money, I understand. However, they don't have an understanding of immigration law. They don't understand the consequences of something as simple as filling out a form incorrectly. Sometimes people think immigration is just about, you're just filling out papers. If you know how to speak English, you can fill that out, right? And like maybe you can. They can be successful, right? But there are times where they make big mistakes. And I have one in my mind right now. Because unfortunately, there were these people who went to a notary thinking that, oh, this is a professional, they can help me out, right? They don't know better. They don't know better. They see immigration law on their window or on their advertisement and they go to them. And something as simple as filling out a family petition for someone else is now taking a lot longer because this specific person did not check off whether the relative was going to be adjusting their status here in the United States or consular processing in their country at the consulate. You have to choose where that case is going to go. This person inadvertently forgot to check that off, and this family was waiting a year, 2 years. They're like, this petition was approved. What is happening? And their daughter is waiting in their country. And so they came to me and they were asking what is going on. And here comes the problem solving, right? I'm looking at the notice and I figured out this person did not select where the case was going. So when immigration approved the petition, they didn't know what to do with it. They held on to it. And so now this family has to fill another application to get immigration to start moving on the application.
Doing double the work.
It's like over a year waiting time on that new application just to get them to act on it. In other words, now this person wasted a year or two that they could have been here, right? And it was because this person didn't know how to fill it out. And I can come up with so many examples of worse ones, right? Where they think that it's just filling out paperwork and they don't really understand the consequences of what can happen to someone if you don't fill out those applications correctly. And I do understand, right, that they don't have all the means in the world, right? I understand that sometimes you want to look for someone that's not as expensive, but what I always tell my clients is lo barato sale caro. You know what I'm talking about, because sure, you save some money on this initial filing, but now when you have to have an attorney go in there and clean up that mess, you've got to pay me to clean up that mess, right? You would have been better off coming to me the first time and getting it done correctly.
So now that you say que lo barato sale caro,
Yes.
can you share a little bit more about who you are? I know that you're Latina, but the audience doesn't know you're a Latina.
Yes, I am Latina, born and raised in New York.
Yes.
And I am fluent in Espanol. So a lot of my consultations are actually in Spanish.
Okay.
Like my default in the office is Spanish. The Hispanic community has found me.
Yes.
And so sometimes I answer the phone and I'm like, law office, español, right? And I go in to see, buenas
switch.
tardes,
Sí.
¿cómo puedo ayudarlo? And so, yes, I speak Spanish. I can help you.
That's amazing. That's amazing that, the community has somebody like you that's well-rounded, has a lot of knowledge when it comes to immigration law. I mean, that's what you went to school for. And that you're well-rounded in Spanish too. Because for me, like, I'm limited with my Spanish, but you can talk the talk and you can do it all fully so they can fully understand you. So I feel like people should be able to come to you with no problem, feel comfortable. Because you're so welcoming and it's amazing. I'm actually very happy to have you here today. It was a pleasure and I appreciate it. And I think you did amazing. Are you getting teary-eyed?
I'm an emotional girl. No,
But
thank
you're
you for
amazing.
having me. I'm very grateful to be here.
No, I'm very happy that the community has you and they're able to turn to you for help, especially during these times, because we're always looking for answers and you're here to solve them for them.
That's right. So call my office.